Hello, everyone. This is Lynette with Elevate Your Health Vibe, and today I am interviewing John Binnie. He is a healer, and he lives in Scotland, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about him before we jump in. So, John, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Hey, hey, Lynette, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me along. Really excited to be here and to share more about my recent journey. Yeah, I could start with a quick introduction. I am, so I live in Scotland. I'm married with two kids, and I have like a corporate day job as a software manager, but in my passions lie in music. I create a song every day through meditation, and over the years, that meditation practice has evolved into darkness clearing and healing as well. So I've been doing those sessions now since early last summer.
Very cool. So I recently had one of your darkness clearing sessions, and it was really kind of mind-blowing. And so after I was done, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to interview John and just create a video so that I can introduce you to the world, because I feel like everybody could benefit from a session with you. And so I just wanted to interview and hear about like your journey. Like, how did you get started on this? Yeah, tell us how you got to doing these darkness clearings.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. It's such a pleasure to do your session, and every session is so unique. Yeah, how did I get started? Well, I guess like the summary of my my life is like, I guess like many children, I had like some kind of awareness of things like ghosts or shadow figures or things like that in my life. And I had some Reiki healing when I was like 17, in fact, from my mother, and I had some experiences in that. And then I kind of largely just shut down anything spiritual for decades. And then 4 years ago, so November 2017, so 4 years ago, I had like a spiritual awakening at a Kundalini yoga session. And after that, I just started practicing meditation every day. So every morning, like just after my morning run, I'd come back and do some basic yoga and start my own meditation practice, often quite short, like 5 to 10 minutes. And that journey started with just, I guess, just having quietness and just kind of listening to what's going on around me. And then over time, I started thinking I could just ask my spirit guides for song lyrics. And so that evolved into writing a song each day based on what I heard. And that daily practice I found was a great way of just connecting with like my higher self and my spirit guides. And to have that kind of trusted communication and to know what it sounds like just a tiny whisper that you can just ignore completely. And so then kind of fast forward to last summer, we both know Jenny from Starseed Academy. So I was doing a session with her. She was doing a one-to-one session with me, and she said, we were talking with, in the session, we were talking with Gaia, with Mother Earth. And in that, Jenny was saying, we need more people to help with balancing light and dark. And literally until that point, as you can tell from my, maybe this is a good top to be wearing, but it's like my hoodie is love in white and then black. And it was almost like my journey until that point had just all been love and light, like love and light, love and light. We're all going to be fine. We just focus on love and light. And what I was largely ignoring was the kind of darkness aspect. So when Jenny said this to me, said, "Hey John, like, do you accept this mission of going on your own journey to do darkness clearing?" I was like, yes, yes, I'll do it. It sounds important, and it sounds like it would be super helpful for me. And just around the time I started, I started doing sessions. I started doing them with friends. In fact, I was guided. It was funny. I was guided to do I won't say their names, but I was guided to do two people that I knew well, and they both had the same first name, which I thought was quite funny. But I'm quite close to them, and they're very trusted, and so I thought, well, I could just start with them, and they would give me like honest feedback. They just, because I know them well, they would like tell me. And yeah, really after those sessions, I just started to get into it, just to expand out. So doing roughly one a week. So that's how I got into it. I'll kind of stop there.
So when she asked you, do you accept the mission of doing the darkness clearings? Like for you, what did that mean? And what does that entail? Like how did you discover what that actually meant?
In many respects, I feel like I will continue to discover what it means. I guess what it means, what it meant for me at the time, I just didn't know. I was like, is that exorcism? Is that like in the horror movies? Like, I don't mind horror movies, but it's not really my thing. And I didn't, I knew of things like, at the time, I knew of things like a lot of healers will do things like saging an area or themselves or someone else, or I'd heard of things like people setting up like protective barriers around them, and I'd heard of things of some people like pulling cords or negative attachments from people. So I kind of knew the very, very basics of that, and to be honest, hadn't really practiced any of it. But then I got this sense that what Jenny was describing to me, which resonated with me, was was one of my superpowers, if you like, is like golden, like to be able to channel and let flow golden healing light. And Jenny was saying, I see you, John, in your highest timeline doing this with your hands. I see there's this version of you that does this as like their full-time job. Like you're there healing, and you're doing it around the world, a lot of the time remotely, sometimes in person. So it's like, okay, so I've got darkness and clearing and golden light. I'll take it. It's like that sounds like a job. Let's try it. And Jenny didn't really know how to help me, or if she did, she wasn't going to offer any suggestions. And I didn't know anyone that did it, so I just started. And I didn't meet I did meet Steph from Soul Reviving with Stephanie, I think is her Instagram page. I met her after a few sessions, and it's like, there's someone that does this, and that was incredible to meet her, because I'm glad I started before I met her, because when I did meet her, it meant like we met a couple of weeks, I think, before she came to the Facebook group that Jenny runs, and I started to realize that there's almost immediately our sessions had very similar approaches, completely independently. Like we were already, she'd been doing it a lot longer, for a year or two more than me, but I was like, wow, that's incredible synchronicity that we're doing them in a very similar fashion already. And so yeah, I had tons of questions, but so that's been great. There's also some others that I talk to. Every person has a different experience, and every person you meet, there's a great kind of opportunity for learning from them. And so I think it's also really important to find some mentors for different things on the journey. But it's very much on the job training. It's like, here, the universe, like, here you go, John, good luck.
Yeah. So when you first started doing these darkness clearing sessions, what were you experiencing? Because so I know that like when I first started seeing you doing these healings and watching your videos, you're definitely, doing this with your hands. So
yeah.
But my session with you it seemed way deeper, like it was I just like sat back on the couch and we went on a journey that was, like a guided meditation type of journey. And you just, guided me to, to ground, to then go up to the central sun and, connect there. And we called in my guide, and then we went to this room, and we had doors, and we went down the door that was blocked, and,
Yeah.
and then, like, so it was very, it was a journey, right? And then
Yeah.
going down the elevator, and then it was like a soul retrieval, right? And
Yeah.
so are all of your sessions soul retrievals, or what else do you see during your sessions?
No, yeah, yours was a fantastic session, and they are, every single one is unique. I think as I started doing them, I started very simply. Like, I was just like, it felt very much like kind of just an energetic kind of cleansing, just turn up, ground, connect into source, set up a protective bubble around us both, and then send healing and do like a kind of energy scan. And it felt like it was almost like it was just kind of coming from my mind, going through steps to work with things. And if I could pick up on something, like if there was an area of the body that needed more focus, I could focus more on that. And as I develop my skills more, now what I do is, when I once I've set up the protective space, I'll go and ask the client's guide, one of their guides, to step forwards and to work with me in the session. And that's been incredible. They and the guides that step forwards, the last one I did, it was a sun. It was a star. Like, it was just actual, like, it looked about head size, like human head size, but just this floating star. And I was like, wow, what are you? And they were saying, like, I am part of the central sun of the universe, and later I'll change my form to like show you what I'm like. And then later they turned into like an angel, like they spread into a humanoid form and spread their angel wings, which is beautiful. And then I've also seen, I guess like Lyrans. I've seen, there was one that was just in energy form, who stepped forwards as a woman instead. Like, they first kind of show themselves and say, you're probably going to struggle with this, so I'm going to like just transform into this thing that's easier for you.
Wasn't that mine? Like, she should.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
She showed up as like this, like like an energy form, like a nebula or something. Like,
that's right. And then asking the name, I find, like, I always get, I get really nervous about asking the name. I think it's like there's some magic to asking an entity its name, in that it is compelled to tell you, and that they're not describing it in English, like they're not describing it in a human language. And so I just get nervous, I'm just going to mess it up, and the client's going to go, I have no idea what you're talking about. Or no, not that one, or whatever. So that, I think I get a little bit of apprehension when I ask for the name, but it's so rewarding, especially when they're, here during or after the session, that it resonates with the person. Yeah, so often I get things like, oh, that's not my main guide, but I've heard of them. I've heard their name. Like, I've had readings and had that name shared before from other people. And then, yeah, I think, sorry, I'm losing track of the question, but I think you're asking like how they vary.
Very cool. Now, do you usually have you done like multiple clearings on the same person, and what's the difference, between like the different clearings on each person, on if you were to do it on the same person?
Yeah, I have. I've done at least a couple of people where I've done it like 2 or 3 times, and every time is very different. And I think that's there's definitely an aspect of when I'm doing a session that this is very much the universe, right? That everything's a lesson. So it's like it's teaching me something about either my the development of my skills, or sometimes it's connections with that person, and it can be as simple as we lived in a past life at roughly the same time. We might even like physically cross paths very briefly, or lived in a similar era, or I'm being taken back to a lifetime that they've been in. That there's always a reason, right? I always feel like the spirit team for the client are saying, this is the top priority thing to address now, so let's go and look at that first. And then when I come back later, it's often completely different. So I've had things like go back, and the first time was more like past regression. The second time can often be more focused on things like I've had people that have been attacked by demons. They've like their light body has been attacked, and so I'd like step in and like call in Archangel Raphael and help with the healing of the light body, and understand, and also give some context about how it happened and the cost. The cost of a demon biting a light worker's light body is like, it costs their life, their soul. And you're giving like some of that context is very helpful in the healing. And I've done both. In that particular one, started with a one-to-one session like we're doing on Zoom just now, like chatting, but then a follow-up I did remote. And so I've also been doing sessions where I'm just sat here, and all I need is like the photo of someone and then their permission. And I say to them very clearly, what's entailed in the process. But what I'm really asking for is like their soul's permission to go ahead and perform what clearing is required for their best interests. And yeah, so that like the second time of being able to do it remotely and then like video that and send it back to them and say, I've done this. In fact, I did one last weekend, and they actually messaged me even before I could say I'd done it. They just said, "You've just done it, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yes." "How did you know?" I said, "I feel amazing." I was like, "Oh, great." Can't wait to share the detail with you.
That's awesome. I after the session with you, which was profound for me, it was mind-blowing. Ever since, well, I don't know, maybe forever, I've been struggling, I'm gonna correct that, up until now, with connecting to like my guys and stuff like that, like tuning into them. And I feel like the work that we did together, like the work that you did, the clearing and doing like a soul retrieval, actually helped to unblock that. Because when I have a friend of mine that talks to her guides, and we're like best friends. We're actually incarnated in this lifetime to work together. And
Wow.
so I had asked her guides, like, what is it that I need to do to connect to my guides or whatever. And like last summer, they could not give me an answer. It was basically like, the answer we got now is I wasn't ready at that time. And I asked them if the work that you and I had done together helped to get me over the hump. And they said yes. So that was
that's great to hear.
Very, yes, 100%. And then there was some other stuff that needed to be cleared, that I ended up clearing with a different practitioner with a different modality. And the guys are now saying all your blocks are removed, you're good to go. And I just had an Akashic Records reading like last week, and the guys were saying, I was like, okay, what do I need to do to connect to my guides? And they said you need to meditate an hour a day, and then I needed to tone for like 5 minutes at the beginning of the session. So I've been doing that. I've missed a couple of days, but like I meditated earlier and did my toning. I'm like, okay. Like,
fantastic. That's so cool. No, well done, and yeah, congratulations on that. It's a huge step, and I can see that it's like for you, it's like part of your soul reuniting, right? You're like why you're here to do this, and you feel such drive to do it. Yeah. And I think so many of us, like I used to put so much pressure on myself, like, when are my guides going to turn up? When are they going to talk to me? What have I done wrong? And they literally took, well, what I didn't realize was that I was actually speaking them very quickly. Like, I think I was within meditating for maybe my first ever meditation, I was already in communication, but I didn't know it. And it was one of them. And they all turned up when I asked them to do so. Please turn up, and they all turned up in a hotel room in Canada in front of me and stood up in a lineup. And it's like, and then introduced themselves. I'm like, okay, this is slightly awkward. And I sat there meditating. I could just see them standing there. I was like, wow, you're like quite a collection of beings. It's just not what I expected at all. I didn't know what to expect, but it was beautiful to see.
That's funny. I've been told I have 12, at least 12 guides, and so I'm like, I can't even imagine all 12 of them sitting in front of me.
That's really cool. And yeah, they're and I think they're often the way when I'm speaking with like a client's spirit team with their guides, I often feel like it's like the way that my guides talk to me, like they're so patient, right? It's like I just feel so like such a little human brain trying its best to talk to these beings in these higher dimensions, or most of them in the higher dimensions, not all. And yeah, the patience and the kind of love that they have to just facilitate that is incredible.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when I had my Akashic reading last week, she's an empath, so she could feel the love from my guides, that were bringing in the information, and she started to tear up. She's like, oh my gosh, the love that they have for you. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. So
that's
yes,
beautiful.
it is. So yeah, so I think that's why I was driven to want to do an interview with you, is because the work that you did for me was so profound, and so it shifted so much for me. I can only imagine that there's more people that could take advantage of the work that you do to kind of get them along their path, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it all helps, right? Like, I do the sound healing with the tuning forks, and that helps. I just did a session the other day with a client, and it was actually a joint session between me and my friend that talks to her guides. We actually did a joint session where I was using my tuning forks and doing the clearing that way, and she was running Reiki, and she was talking to the client's guides, getting information, and like passing that information along. And and I asked, can you confirm what the tuning forks cleared? And she said, the tuning forks cleared a block in her shoulders and her throat, and then also her solar plexus. And I was like, wow, that's cool.
Fantastic. That's really good.
And she immediately, like after the session, she was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And she she emailed me yesterday, and she's like, I don't know what you guys did, but it cracked something open. I was like, awesome. That's awesome. So I feel like, like all of us, who are out there with the purpose of doing this work, to help remove the blocks to people ascending, right? People are drawn, they are brought to us, to the person that can, help them along their journey.
Us, yeah.
Right.
It's so true.
So it's like we all have a little piece to play, in this process.
And and I think we all, and I feel like we all benefit from it. Like I now have a friend give me a clearing every month. Now I'm doing this work, and like the feeling I have afterwards is like, when you go on a vacation for a week or two, and you feel so clear of like that stress and that. Like, I feel like that, but it's literally just like being a busy day at the office the day before, and then the next day I'm like, I just feel like I've been somewhere for 6 months. So like I feel amazing. Yeah. Like it's like there's no tension, and I couldn't describe it any other way than saying that inside of me, like my body feels like just such a clear channel. And I think also as people step into their gifts, like you and I we're exploring our kind of spiritual gifts. As you go on that journey, there's still, it's great to focus on the positive and the light aspects of our work. But we also, I feel like all of us have like our own shadows, our own shame, our own darkness. And you know, some of the things I've been appreciating through my sessions is like getting to understand like the kind of physical laws of the universe, or the metaphysical laws of the universe. Things like it's energy first, it's a free will universe, and you can attract and sometimes feel that you need to attract negative entities to attach to you, to help you with, and they feed off you know, negative emotions, and that even go as far as to say that at some times during your life that may have been short-term benefit for you, because you're like, oh, I just need something to like take that, you know, that edge off, and they're like, hey, it's okay, and they just kind of like they attach onto you, and they're like, I'm just gonna feed here for a while, and then that's it. Since they've said yes, that's your free will. Or it's been in a, you know, I've had 3 sessions now where the kind of, I guess, the shame and the guilt of the client has of what they've done in their previous lives has been echoing for eons through their lifetimes. Wow. And in fact, and a couple go back to like, and these are public sessions, but I won't mention their names here, but they are public on my YouTube channel. They go back to the creation of this universe and creation of previous universes, and their roles were, you know, in the destruction and the rebirth of like planets and stars, and that was a heavy burden for that soul to carry, and they didn't, for all the destruction they caused in their role, they couldn't see at the time why it was so beneficial to millions and even trillions of souls. And so the effect it's had on them is to, you know, often, like we see this with the kind of human psyche as well, that we often fragment. We often go like, there's that darkness, and that can stay there in the cupboard, or like, I'm just going to put you away there, and that's like, no one needs to see you, you can just stay there. And then like, hey, I'm like super love and light. But always it's knocking on the cupboard door, and it's trying to come back, and they feel like there's this part of them that's missing. And what I do in those sessions is really bring, like, in a safe and loving manner, bring that soul back together wherever that fragment's ended up. And yeah, often, not always, but around half of the sessions, they've ended up in some lower dimension, like an aspect of hell, or in a kind of trapped void. And so it's great to be able to just bring them back and to rejoin. And when that magic happens, when you can bring all of the aspects of a soul together, it's just so beautiful, because you realize there is no judgment, there is no duality of dark and light. We are all souls and humans with everything in between. And you know, the duality is just an illusion. And it's an illusion that both sides can kind of feed off, right? That love and light can just say, they're the bad guys, you know, ignore them, and the darkness can scurry around in the shadows and feed off our fear and the separation aspect. So it's great to bring it together and just make souls whole again.
Yeah. I mean, it's the question that I had, that I don't know that I've gotten the answer to this question yet, is why did I need to wait until I incarnated in human form to like assimilate that aspect of myself?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, do you know why that is?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I feel like when the separations happen, they are often caused by a trauma. So there'll be there'll be an event like it. The theme for me is when how to describe it, when a soul has a gift. So let's say the soul, like in one example, the soul had the gift of fire, and they would use it for it could be used as like healing energy. It could be used for like physical fire and flames, and it could be used in battle. And so that gift was super sacred to that soul, and through many lifetimes for them. And then at one point there was this particular example is a very long story, but let's just say an old enemy caught up with the soul, and the soul was like, you know what? Like, I'm done with you. This is the last time you do this. You've done this through many lifetimes and even multiple universes. So it stops here. And then went really on like a killing spree, and killed many people. And it was the key aspect of it that was that it was uncontrollable. So it was a gift being used in a way that for bad intention, but also it just couldn't control its power. And I think at that point, it's quite common then that the soul will try and shut it off. And so that's when the fragmentation happens as to why it's this lifetime, a bit like you're saying, like, why would you be attracted to, drawn to talk to someone that does darkness clearing like myself? I think it's a sign of being ready. There's been one or two people I've done it for, and they've maybe been ready or not ready, or maybe they were ready when they asked for the session, but when they had it, they were kind of just shutting down a bit. And it's at that point I just say, well, I'm not here to play God. I'm just like here to provide that service, and if the soul wants to receive it, then great. And I'm sure at very least some aspects of them are. And yeah, I guess to go back to your question, it's hard to know exactly why this lifetime, but I think some of it's to do with what's going on in this world, in these lifetimes, like our missions in this life. And it's not just people like you and I that are exploring our gifts, but it's also like everyone on the planet. It's like, it's such a great time of change that being able to bring in, first of all, it's a big challenge getting souls to want to come and do this, like come to this planet this time. And then secondly, if you've got gifts, come here and then bring them with you, and lightly bring them from previous lives. Like, start to relearn what you already know that your soul knows, and bring them back in, because it's right now that you're needed.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, especially if that what came to me is that if during an incarnation in a human form, if it is in this realm, if you will, that we pushed away that aspect of ourselves, that we have to then reincarnate in human form in order to claim it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's almost like you have to do it almost in the same way, or you've like healed, what pushed it away in the first place. And so therefore you can come back and, basically take it up again, or.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's like, for me, it's like souls don't grow unless they're incarnated. So their growth is through incarnation. And so we as souls have to come into like a physical form, because when we come into it, we massively narrow our abilities. And we have this veil of forgetfulness, like, I forget that I'm some magical soul. And so you then just very focused on trying to live a life. And you're going through all these things like, it's a bit like, how to describe it, like that analogy of the Zen master that spends, 20 years of their life on top of a mountain ignoring humans, and becomes like a rainbow, light being, because they're so powerfully ascended. And then the next day, like, they go down into the city and they're shouting and swearing at people that, run over their toes with cars and stuff. They're like, this is awful. Like, how can I live around you humans? And that's what our souls are like, right? They're like, oh, we're fine when we're floating around in the higher dimensions. There's no problems up here. And then when you come down, it's when you learn the real lessons. And you learn all that tolerance and forgiveness and fear and all those different kind of colors of emotions that us humans go through. And that's what helps the soul really grow.
That's what I tell my clients. I tell my clients, I said, this is a God school.
Yeah,
Like we incarnate here because we get all of the lessons of polarity and duality and all these things here. We get to there is no tougher school than Earth,
yeah,
to incarnate in, because it is tough to forget who you are, have all these experiences, and it's why we're here, and the I've had to explain to people, because I do past life regressions as well. And
mhm,
I have to explain to people, like, sometimes we're the perpetrator and sometimes we're the victim, and so in one life, we wanted to experience what it was like to be the perpetrator. And in another life, we want to experience what it's like to be the victim.
yeah,
Because that's how our soul grows. Because when our soul has evolved enough to the point where we're a creator being, creating planets and worlds and so on and so forth and civilizations, we as an evolved soul have to have experienced everything so that we know what we're doing when we're out there creating those worlds. So
yeah,
without these experiences, you know, our soul can't grow. So, the fact that we're moving from the third dimension or 3D to 5D, it's like we'll have to get those lessons on another planet because Earth, there's no more Earth.
that's true.
that experience is now, it's not going to be there anymore. So we'll have
Yeah,
to be incarnating on other planets. And, we all have, we're all millions, trillions of years old. I mean, there is no time, but, we've all done all things. We've been rocks and plants and trees and animals and, like things you can't even imagine, doing past life regressions and seeing the things that people incarnate as.
yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay. It like these sea creatures that, like, when they describe the creature that they are, they're like,
Mm.
yeah, I'm like this really weird fish, but I have like a head like a person, and like
Yeah.
and this like hair, and I'm just like, well, that's weird.
Wow.
It's just, when I say we've been all things, we've been all things.
That's right. Yeah.
There's no limit. There is no limit to what source creates in order to experience itself, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I love that everything is living. And it's such a great way of seeing the universe with when everything is alive, and even some of the seemingly inanimate things around me, that that your energy can affect it, and that you can create consciousness yourself. Um, and yeah, I love that the vast varieties of it's not something, I must admit, that I don't, in my sessions, I don't spend a lot of time asking people about what their being is like. Sometimes I'm just worried I'm not like getting it right. But yeah, I've seen quite a few different yeah, everything from like yourself, like from nebula through to dark angels to like demonic beings, and you're like, wow. Do I have to tell the client this? um, it's like, yes, you do. It's really important. Um, and even like you were talking about, you know, guides. I've heard some people like arguing with their guides, or even I've heard stories of people like trying to fire a guide. Like you're that one is never listening to me, right? I don't know why you think you're in my lifetime, but you like need to go. Which I think is really funny. And I've also seen just last just very recently, I had a guide that had with the client that had really overstepped the mark, that actually become they were their lowest vibration guide, and they had become highly protective, because that was their role, was to assist in protection. And they'd actually formed like a what I'd normally see as a demonic attachment to the client. And I was I was thinking, this is really hard to say. Like, there's a lot of trust that we put in our guides, and no one wants to hear that. I don't know, like you know, some of the things that are most sacred, like angels or source or your God or whatever your belief is, that is there really like a dark side to these as well? And I think what was really beautiful about that journey was that they, like, it was when you learned about the story, it was like you totally understood it. Like there's, you know, there's the client is such a beautiful soul that has struggled so much with protection in their life, and they really needed to grow their abilities and to have some isolation to do it, have protection to do it. And so the guide was doing a great job, but then the guide just, I wasn't sure what the catalyst was, but it just became almost like constantly surrounding the client with this kind of bubble. Almost instead of like a golden bubble, it was almost like a dark cave. And it's like, I will protect you, I will keep you here. And actually, after a while, that started to just inhibit their soul growth. And I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know when we did the session whether they would decide to get rid of the guide. And the guide was like, I totally understand it. They were just, it was beautiful. The guide was just saying, look, I know what I've done. I know that I've overstepped the mark. I know it's gone on for too many years. I just couldn't, I couldn't control it, couldn't help myself. But what we were able to do was heal both the guide and the client. Wow. And so I was able to leave both of them say, look, it's now up to both of you. Well, it's really the client, but it's, the guide could also choose to leave at any time. And I said, no, if you forgive me, I'll stay. But it's totally up to you if you want me to leave. And I thought that was really important for me because not just as a beautiful experience for the client, but also because when I communicate with my guides, I always set the intention first. And so even my most trusted guides, I say, like when I ask for my song lyrics every morning, I say the words, guides, higher self and source, please give me a message for today with the highest good, love and compassion. And so that even they can't give me something that is, with negative intent for me or the world. And I think that be able to set up intention is super powerful, and protection, even with your closest beings around you, like your guides, because they're not human, right? But maybe some of them were, but they have their own darkness and light, their personalities. If we're all just light, we would just be like this one spectrum, flat spectrum of, kind of nothingness. And so it's great to just acknowledge the spectrum of color that we all have in our souls.
That's fascinating. I did not know that a guide could do that. Like,
neither did I.
That is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it is incredible. It was like, and it looked like it when I saw it. It looked like I'm trying to think. You sometimes see it in movies, but it's like I could see the guide standing to one side, and I could see this like attachment to the solar plexus, and it was like this thick cord connected directly to each other, like almost like this kind of thick umbilical cord, but it was completely black. And usually when I'd see an attachment, they're like on the light body or on the physical body, or kind of between the two. So yeah, that was. I mean, every session's new, and so usually if a powerful session is booked, I usually get a build up for 2 or 3 days before it. I start to get some insights, and I think it's a way of like my guide saying, okay, John, this is gonna be some tough messages to deal with, and sometimes it's challenging my own beliefs. I'm like, oh, we're going to hell again. We're going down in the elevator, and this time we're going to the deepest depth, or we've done things like I've gone with the guides and been this was one I did with another darkness clearing person. What she'd done is she'd she had a dark angel aspect to her, and she that her dark angel. So we had Archangel Michael with us, right, and we were down in hell, and so the dark angel just says, "This guy, they hate him down here." And it's like, what are we doing in hell with this guy? And it's like, I know, right? And our dark angel had these like massive, giant, like black feathered wings, and she wrapped us all, including Archangel Michael, in the feathers, and then just went. Showed us a route out to leave, and it's just like that is mind-boggling. We did get noticed on just towards the end, because energy speaks first, but it was enough, enough time. And I think there's so many things that in the sessions that challenge my beliefs and often the beliefs of the clients. And I guess that's kind of the whole point of these things, right? Like your past life regressions and learning about all our different living life forms, is that there is such infinite variation in the universe, and it can be timelines and across dimensions, and people living in multiple soul fragments, and living in different multiple timelines at the same time. It's all there. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I've actually I did a session on a fellow practitioner back, I think it was July, and in that session, she was like an energy body, and she was like going around and like testing the energy on the trees and the grasses. And I was like, what are you? She's like, well, I'm an aspect of myself. And I was like, okay, well, who's yourself? And so
Yeah.
I was like, I want you to go connect with yourself. And so she went up onto a spaceship, and there was one other being on the spaceship, and it was like a research vessel, and they were basically testing what the Earth needed at that time, and taking the information back and putting together reports or whatever. And I said, do you work for the Galactic Federation of Worlds? And they said, and she was like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, let's go over there. And so like at the end, come to find out, I was the other being on the ship.
No, that's so cool.
And we were cracking up. She's like, it's you. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so funny. And so apparently we've had past lives together. Like it was a wild session. And so it's like, wow, I'm a being on a spaceship working for the Galactic Federation of Worlds in a parallel life. Like it's just.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love that.
It is totally incredible.
Before I started the darkness clearing sessions, I had something quite similar where I was constantly having dreams of being on a Galactic Federation ship, where it's a big ship, it's overlooking Earth. There was like lots of meetings, and I always had this imposter syndrome in my like dream, where I'd be like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I here? These all seem like really important, like, I don't know, guides and beings and stuff. And they're discussing like super important things for like humanity and the whole universe. And I'm sat there thinking, what am I gonna sing them a song or something? Like, what am I here for? And then I would also have dreams, I still do, of and lucid dreams of doing missions on Earth. So like come down to Earth with a team of 8, go and like, they were often a clearing team. So it'd be like go and like chase out, like track down some sort of negative entity or something that was, or sometimes multiple that were in a like physical building. And I thought at the time I was aware of like my past lives as being a seer. So I thought my role must have been, so I must be the person that can see things and like let others know. And I could, not just see, but experience the emotions of every being in the vicinity, or like kind of see through their eyes, and sometimes with limited capability, like have control over them. So I thought it was that. And I always felt like the spare part, like everyone else was fighting, like physically fighting in like, I guess like 4D. And I'm like, over there, that way guys, over there. But it wasn't until, it wasn't until I started going to darkness clearing sessions with clients, I realized, oh no, it's actually been much more than that. And it's always been more than that. I just like, and that sense of time, I guess you experience as well through the past life regressions, is the concept of time just disappears, right? I almost feel like when I talk about a session, I should be talking about the present, because they're all happening in the present at the same time, and every aspect, whether it's about, you know, an aspect of me or an aspect of the other person in their many lives. But yeah, it's so magical, and it's easy to dismiss some of these things as dreams, thinking that didn't happen, it's just a dream. But I have seen a Galactic Federation ship. It was huge. I don't know, did you ever see the photo that the video that Jenny shared on her Starseed Academy page? She had it looked like a long kind of cigar shaped ship with lights. I saw that about was it 3 or 4 months before, and it was just huge. I mean, I run every morning just to the south of our town. At about 5 a.m. so it's always dark with my dog, and we just left the town, and there's a really starry night, and I was looking to the right thinking, I think I can see like some sort of glimmer. It looked initially it looked a bit like maybe like an airplane's vapor or chemtrail, or maybe like a cloud with moonlight. It was like a straight line with loads of lights, and then it started just slowly making its way across, really slowly coming across the sky. And I just, my reaction, which apparently is quite common now I read about it, is I just started crying, like just tears flooding down. And it just so slowly, if you imagine a full moon, it was about 5 moons in length. And it just gradually made its way across the sky. And so I asked, of course I had no camera. And so I asked in meditation, like when I got home, I was like, what was that? And they were saying, we went to a lot of effort to show you. We went to a huge amount of effort to bring the ship down to show you physically. This is physically real, John. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And then immediately wrote a song about it and did a video about it. I think the song's called Ship in the Sky. But yeah, it's, for me, that's a very real thing. For all the, you know, I think it's very easy when you're practicing your gifts to, I would say every time I do a session, every single time without fail, afterwards, my ego's like, hey, John, you just made all that up. And I'm like, what? My heart's like, ego, you're an idiot. And the ego's like, well, I think you're crazy. You know, you're like telling people this crazy stuff. I mean, have you listened to yourself? And I'm like, yeah. And in some respects, I don't know, it's kind of funny. And I feel like sometimes it's a bit of a reaction, just like coming back to reality. It's like, okay, back in the human, do the human things. Now I need to like go and walk the dog, or it's very easy to doubt all that. And I was asking others, you know, like what do you experience when you do them afterwards? And said exactly the same thing. Lightly just question everything I just experienced, and then just reflect on it and say, you know, if you want the truth, you listen to your heart, don't listen to your mind. It's like, it is hopeless.
That's awesome. Well, it has been awesome having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can people find you? Where can they get a hold of you? And how much are your sessions?
Great question. So what's the easiest way to find me is either on YouTube as John Binnie, JONBINNIE, or on Instagram as john.binnie, JON.BINNIE. On both, you'll find links to my link tree, which has both my YouTube channel of all my songs each day, and also there's one links near the top is how to find out more about, there's a website for my darkness clearing sessions, so testimonials, some details about the sessions, and also their costs as well.
Okay.
So yeah, you can see it all there, and you can just book me, or you can just like message me direct and just ask some questions like, what's a session like? What, you know, usually the sessions for me are, it's about an hour, sometimes to run. I think the longest is run is about 2 hours, but it's pretty exhausting for both parties. So usually people like, you can just tell us like, I think you've been through enough after an hour. And in that session, we'll do a Zoom call one-to-one. And although I have shared some of the sessions, it's always up to the client. And it's really no pressure. It's up to them if they want to share it. And you can have like a copy yourself, like on YouTube privately, so that you can watch it anytime. And also a song, like I create a song during the session, really just to capture that vibration and that moment, so that you can go back to it and listen to it anytime. And then I always just check in for a few days afterwards, like, hey, how are you doing? And like, you still drinking lots of water? And you any questions? And because there's often for both parties like a bit of a kind of reflection on the session. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Yeah, I hope to, if anyone's interested, you know, don't be scared. I think the most important thing to know is that you know, when approaching whether it's myself or someone else for a darkness clearing session, like, there is no judgment other than your own, and there's no shame that would surprise. You know, if I had a couple of clients say to me, John, are you sure you're ready for this? Like, I will literally go to hell with you and back. There will be no soul left behind. We will go together. And there's no, if you think destroying a universe or a planet is pretty shameful, these are people that have, like, I've done sessions with, and you know, we've come out of it together healed. So it's all possible.
Yeah. And I just want to make a mention that I did not visualize during our session, and so it's not a requirement that people be able to visualize in order for this work to be done. That you're the one doing all the visualization and basically having the journey and just expressing what you're seeing during the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to put that out there, you know, for people who may be like, well, I don't see, so you know, can I do this? And the answer is yes, you know.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that.
well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been fantastic. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.